You do know that I can move things with my mind, right? Hey everyone, and welcome to April's Tbr Assemble. If you don't know what this is, I'll leave a link up above to my original video where I do all the explanation, but essentially this is my Avengers based Tbr game. Now this month I'm also going to be doing All the World's a Page and obviously the Magical Readathon. In terms of what I'm going to be doing in terms of the Magical Readathon and All the World's a Page, for All the World's a Page I'm literally just chucking in whatever prompts I can fit into any of these books essentially, so please bear with me on that one. And then for the Magical Readathon I'm going for necromancy again, so let's get into the roles and exactly what I'm going to be reading. But actually, before we get into the prompts, we should talk about the other prompt I'm getting as part of my Choose Your Own Adventure bit. As you can see from this clip, I chose the world icon, which was basically to read as many comics and all the rest of it as possible to remain in the Marvel universe, because the world is trying to pull me back out again. This is actually currently a reference to the fact that my April is going to be horrendously busy in so many ways it's not even funny anymore, and I'm probably not going to have that much time to read. So what I'm going to be doing is reading a lot of comics this month, and then also a few books. I may swap out some of these books for comics if I don't have time, but I'm going to try and read at least one book a week, but we'll see how things go. Now let's get into the role. So we're back to the board again, and we're going to be using a Captain Carter because I haven't used her before and I felt like it. So we're going to go on to 38 where we were last time and start with our first roll, which is a 4. So 1, 2, 3, 4, starting off purple, fantasy, purple being for the Power Stone, and I'm gonna go in the middle here. Defender Strange, a red and black cover. I like that prompt. My first prompt was Defender Strange, which is to read a book with a black and red cover, so I'm going for Tokyo Ghoul. I think this is volume 12. I want to say volume 12. Don't quote me on this though, because I can't remember what this one is. But essentially this is the latest one that my library has got in of the Tokyo Ghoul series, which is like a horror manga about ghouls and things like this in Japan. I really enjoyed this series, and it's going to be covering the prompts of Inscription, because this is the highest on my library hold shelf at the moment. I've had it on hold for like 2 weeks now and I haven't had time to read it, so it's going to be running out right at the beginning of April. I've got like 4 days I think it is to read it, so I'm going to attempt to read this in the first 4 days of April and get it off my shelf before the hold runs out, so wish me luck on that. And it's also going to be counting for the prompt of Aside for the All the World's a Page readathon. Roll number 2 is a 2, so 1, 2, that is Own Voices. Right. I'm going to go middle again actually, and that is Miles, a library book. My next prompt was Miles Morales, which is to read a book from the library that's Own Voices, so I've gone for another manga, and this one is the next one in the Spy X Family series. I think this one is volume 7, if I remember rightly. Either way, my library has just gone in. I nabbed the hold immediately because I love this series. This is all about a adoptive family where you've got one of the best spies in the country, has to basically go undercover, which means he ends up with a wife and adopting a child, but he doesn't know that his wife is an assassin, one of the best assassins in the country, and his daughter can read minds. So the daughter knows that both of these people are not who they say they are, but they've got no idea about the other one, or about the fact that their kid knows everything they're thinking. It is a hilarious series. I love it. I am trash for it, hence why it's going for the prompt of Hamlet for the All the World's a Page readathon. Roll number 3 is a 1. So 1, that is comics. I'm going to need comics, so I'm going to go to the middle again. Billy and Tommy, LGBTQI plus authors or main characters. My next prompt was Billy and Tommy, which is to read an LGBTQI plus author or main character in comics, so I have gone for Something is Killing the Children, volume 5, because James Tynion IV, who is the guy who writes this, is an openly gay author. I am so excited for this. This is all about like monster hunters, all the rest of it is very sort of over the top violent and things like this. There's secret societies, everything else. I'm trying to see if there's literally anything I can show you here. There we go. This is just about the only panels I can show you in here because there's a lot of gore and threats to children, all the rest of it, and I don't really want to show you that in case that's something that people don't really want to see on this video. But I am so excited to read this one. I've loved this series so far, and this is actually not counting for a single other prompt, magical or Shakespeare, so that's good. Either way, very excited to continue on with this series because I love it. Roll number 4 is a 1, so just go over 1. So again, that is fantasy. Gonna go, no, I'm feeling this one actually, Mobius, free choice. I couldn't be happier to pull that right now. My next prompt was Mobius, which is to read a book that's a complete free choice. I can pick anything I want, so I went for Lockwood & Co. The Whispering Skull. This one is the sequel to the first Lockwood & Co. book, which is The Screaming Staircase. I never usually say that right, so points to me for managing that. But essentially this is all about like teenagers who hunt ghosts and this kind of thing. They have their own sort of little sort of private detective agency kind of thing where they hunt ghosts and they get hired to deal with ghosts. All of this kind of thing is a really good fun series, and it is constantly compared to Skullduggery Pleasant in all of the lists. Whenever I google books like Skullduggery Pleasant, this series comes up. So it's going to be covering the prompt of demonology as well, and it's also going to be covering the prompt of Claudius. And then roll number 5, that went off the camera, but that's a 3, so 1, 2, 3, fanfic. And then final roll is a 5. So 1, 2, 3, 4, 5. That is red, which is retellings. Okay then, let's go smack bang in near middle there. So that is Jane Foster, a badass female character. And then my final prompt was Jane Foster, which is a badass female character that's also in a retelling, so I've gone for Wendy Darling by A.C. Wise, and this one is all about Wendy, who's all grown up. She's got a husband and a young daughter called Jane, but then one night after all these years, Peter Pan returns, and she's basically now trying to save her daughter now that Peter Pan has taken her. I'm really excited to read this one. I've heard amazing things. I've heard that it's very dark and atmospheric, which I'm here for, and I'm also looking forward to reading this one around the time the new Peter Pan and Wendy movie comes out on Disney Plus, because I like to sort of pair my reads wherever possible, and this one sounds like it's going to be a good time. It's also accounting for the prompt of a book for a project, because it's getting it off my priority TBR list for 2023, because this is one of the books on there. It doesn't count for any magical readathon prompt though. I tried to squeeze it in somewhere, but it doesn't cover any necromancy prompts unfortunately, but never mind, still excited to read this one, and it is still covering something for the All the World's a Page readathon. And obviously that is not going to be the end of my TBR, because I have a lot of other magical readathon prompts to get through. So the first one I have is Shapeshifting, and that is for the wolf form, which means that I've got to read a book with a wolf on the cover, in the title or in the author's name, and you have no idea how difficult this was to find. I was hoping for multiple books having a wolf on the cover or something, and I have nothing. Literally nothing, and I don't know how that happened. So instead I'm going to be going on to Marvel Unlimited and reading a Werewolf by Night, a Marvel Voices run, because there's a wolf in the title and it's all I had. Literally, this was all I had, so that's what I'm going for. It's going to be a very quick read. I do not know what this one's about, further than the fact that it's about a werewolf. That's all I know, that's all I'm going with. I then had Animal Studies, which means I had to do heads or tails. I managed to get tails, which meant fiction, so I'm going to be going for Midsummer's Mayhem. This is going to be my audiobook for the month, and it's going to be covering the prompt of travelling for the All the World's a Page readathon. I have chosen this one, A, because I had it on my Audible library and I've been wanting to read it for a while, and also because this one has been absolutely raved about by one of the co-hosts of All the World's a Page, Cara. She absolutely raved about this book and the entire series, so I really wanted to give it a go. And it is also a Shakespeare retelling, and if I can't read a Shakespeare retelling during this month, during the readathon of All the World's a Page, when am I going to do that? So I'm definitely going to be reading this, very excited for it, and it may be the only book I read this month because I can listen to it in dribs and drabs, but we'll see. My next prompt after that was Spells and Incantations, which is Magic Missiles, which is to read a book between 389 pages and 415 pages. And do you know how difficult that was? Like, the amount of books I found that were 416 pages long, all of them that I picked up were either like 370 or 416. And I was like, are you kidding me? Until last night, literally last night, I found 2 possibles, and then I was like, what about Pages and Co? And this book is 390 pages. So it's just in there, but I'm excited for this because this is going to be a very, very quick read. It is a middle grade. The writing is quite large, and there's also illustrations like this throughout it. I read through the first one really, really quickly, so I'm very excited to see if I can read through this one just as quickly, especially on a busy month. I should mention that this is the second book in the Pages and Co series, which is Tilly and the Lost Fairy Tales, and this is about Tilly, who her and her family can essentially read people out of books and then also read themselves into books and have adventures in books and with book characters and things like this. It is a love letter to books and readers. I loved the first one, so I'm so excited to read this one. I was supposed to read this in March, completely and utterly ran out of time, so I'm really glad that I can squeeze this in as well for April and finally continue on with this series and just love this book again because I love that first one so much. I cannot wait to read this one. Thank God it was just within that Magic Missiles prompt line. I'm so happy if it was. If it had been 388 pages, I would have cried. I just would have cried. So thank God it was just within that. I'm so glad. I'm so glad. Next prompt was Conjuration, which is Binding Spells, which is a book recommended by a friend. So I have gone for Saga for this one because I've heard multiple people talking about this one, and Hannah specifically has told me that I'm probably going to really like this one because it reminded her of the TV show The Boys, which is a fantastic TV show, really sort of meta, taking the mick out of modern society, superheroes, all the rest of it. I really, really enjoyed the series, and if you compare a book or anything to the series The Boys, I will read it. So I'm going to be reading Saga. I'm not going to explain what this is about because everyone knows what it's about because everyone's read it. I'm very, very late to this party. But it's also going to be counting for the prompts of Rosalind, Helena, and re-enter Bottom with an Ass's Head. And then my final prompt is Lore, which is to read a book with a map, and this one was again a challenge because it turns out all of the books I wanted to read this month do not have a map in them. I couldn't believe it. I was literally going through all of my books going, no map, no map, no map, no map. Oh, for God's sake, where's the maps? And I could not find a single one with a map in it until I discovered this blog that I'll leave a link to down below, which is Comic Cartography, which actually has a whole load of maps listed from various different graphic novels. So naturally, I mined that because I needed more graphic novels on this TBR, and I ended up going for Isola, which is one of the new ones I bought for my birthday actually. And this one, I can't remember what this one's about. I know it's a fantasy, but there's also a map within the first 2 pages, so it's definitely counting for that. On to Restoration now. The 3 choices I have is Legion, Trauma. I also then have X-23, Innocence Lost, and then also Shang-Chi versus the Marvel Universe. So I'm gonna close my eyes, do all of this business, then I'm gonna pick this one. That is Legion, Trauma. So this one is by Peter Milligan, and this one, it says David Haller, the son of Professor Charles Xavier, has always had trouble containing the multiple personalities in his mind, and with each new personality comes a wild and dangerous mutant power. But now a terrifying new personality is threatening to absorb all of these powers and take over David, body and soul. In a desperate attempt to save himself from the dangerous new personality called Lord Trauma, David seeks out the help of renowned young psychotherapist Dr. Hannah Jones to delve into his fractured mind and help fight back this dark voice inside. But unknown to Legion, Dr. Jones brings her own demons with her. The only way for David to survive this ordeal may be to recruit his biggest, baddest selves yet. I'm slightly worried about this in terms of like representation, in terms of dissociative identity disorder, because there's always a little bit of like iffy nature when it comes to Legion writing and how it writes dissociative identity disorder. But I'll be glad to get this one off my list though, because it's been on there for a very long time and it's about time I got it read, essentially, because I've owned this since a while. I've owned this a very long time. I think I've owned this since Legion was airing on TV, and that was years ago now, so excited to finally read this one. And then if I've got time, I may read these two as well. I doubt it, but you never know. And that is absolutely everything. I was supposed to be going for a small TBR this month, and somehow it's ended up looking like this, which doesn't look too bad until you include all of the comics on there, and the fact that I also, if I get time, want to read The Reluctant Vampire Queen. If I get 5 minutes. I don't think I'm going to have time to read this one, but I really would like to, because it sounds like a very, very sort of like silly vampire book, which I'm very much here for, especially considering the film Renfield is coming out, starring Nicolas Cage and Nicholas Hoult, which it just looks bonkers, essentially, and almost like a spoof send-up kind of thing. And I feel like this is going to cover that quite well, but I don't think I'm going to have time for this, especially considering the month I'm about to have. But you never know. I haven't even bothered to look up page count or anything. I'm just hoping for the best. But that is where I'm going to leave this video. So I hope you enjoyed it. If you did, please do give me a thumbs up. Comment down below, tell me what you're reading for the Magical Readathon, or All the World's a Page. I'd love to know. Or if you don't have that much time, leave me a vampire emoji down below to let me know that you were here. I'll also leave a link as well down below to all of my social media if you want to check it out, including to the Comic Book Sanctum, which is my website dedicated to Marvel Comics, as well as a link down below as well to my Etsy and Redbubble store, which sells bookish merch if you're interested in that. Or if you just want to see any more of my videos, please click subscribe here, and over here will be the link to my previous video. But until next time, everyone, bye!